This is the ATI Podcast.
Welcome back to the ATI Podcast. We're flying in here for episode 121. Our special artist this week is Gawd. Gawd's, if you guys aren't familiar with it, is a post-hardcore shoegaze outfit out of Rancho Cucamonga, California. I know you guys are inspired by the early aughts of new gaze, but you guys cite things like R&B melodies as inspirations for some of the songwriting, and I know you guys are trying to do something new and pave your own road as well. So thank you so much for joining the show today.
Hell yeah, thank you for having me again, man. This is an honor.
Of course, as we do with every artist, if you guys aren't familiar with Gawd, we're going to be having some music for the intro of the show, and as well as the closing of the show, we're going to have a full-length clip as well, and we're going to have your links to check these fine folks out at the close of the episode as well, and the episode details. So I can't encourage you folks enough, if you like what you're hearing and getting to know these folks as musicians, that you should most definitely, I encourage folks always to check out the artists. If you like what you hear, of course, support these folks, buy some merch, buy some shirts, all that fun stuff to keep the dream going. So we always try to keep that dream, that spirit alive here on the show.
Hell yeah. Have you ever worked in like marketing or sales? Because that was a fantastic pitch. Thank you a lot for doing that.
Well, I don't, just because I have a very firm opinion about sales jobs. I think they're soulless, unfortunately. I do this because I believe in it, so, and I believe what you guys are doing. So I'm really excited to get to know you guys a little bit more this evening and kind of get into your background. So let's kind of start things there. Let's talk about, kind of what drew you originally into music, how you kind of saw this as a path for yourself professionally, why you wanted to pursue it, those sorts of things.
Yeah. Wow, that's a good question off the rip. Damn, what started it? Well, I don't know. So of course, like music's like always been around. Like, you're born, like there's always like the radio's playing, your parents got their CD collection. But I think I remember specifically like one of the big things was it was like third or fourth grade. American Idiot had like just came out, and I wasn't aware. Like I knew who Green Day were, but like I wasn't aware of like albums dropping or like what was the world happening, like what was going on at the same time. And so this kid, we were like best friends in elementary school, and he has like his iPod Classic, and he's like, yo, I gotta show you this. And he plays me the song American Idiot, and I hear Billy Joe say, fuck America. And that was like the big moment where I was like, you can say stuff like that? Like I never heard that before. And
Sure.
And so from that moment on, like I really started to like pay attention to bands. Like the concept of bands really like clicked on, and like buying t-shirts. So it was like Green Day and Slipknot and him, and like anything that was in like a skate video. Like I was trying to figure out like, or anything in like the Tony Hawk games. It's like Disturbed. I remember that was a big one at the time. I was just like looking into everybody. So that was like, I think that was like the jump as to like giving a shit about bands, but not necessarily sure how like being in a band came to mind, or like how I even figured out that that could be like a career. I mean, I still haven't figured out the career part. I just really enjoy doing it. But I think I remember there was like these group of kids, and this is in middle school now, so like 7th grade. And these friends I had made because they were into like all the like the pro chorus stuff, so like all the Warped Tour shit.
Yeah.
Like A Day to Remember and Bring Me the Horizon. So they had gotten me into all of that stuff, and their band was like auditioning for the talent show, and they didn't get it. And I was like, oh, like I didn't know you could be a kid and be in a band. And the next year, that same band, their singer had like graduated, like or promoted, whatever, was like 1 year older than them. So she was away, and then I stepped in as the singer, and that was like the first band that I had done. And I think like from that moment on, realizing that like somehow it felt like what we were doing in the 8th grade wasn't too far away from what was going on at Warped Tour, which couldn't be more non-true. But
Sure.
in my kid brain, I was like, all right, cool, I'm one step away. Like, we just play this show and then we'll play someone's backyard. And then our next show should be the, Monster Energy diet stage.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, there's a lot of that. I remember those Warped Tour days of like the battle fours or the battle of the bands to maybe hit those opening stages, man. And that was a real struggle there for a while to play the black top at like noon.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, they're because I remember I think it was the battle of the bands. Whoever won in like whatever city they played, I think it was like Ernie Ball. It was like an Ernie Ball string stage, and it was a stage that like lived inside of like whatever truck. So like the stage like folded out. So it was like the worst stage to play on. You had like 10 minutes.
Right.
And then but I would imagine there had to be someone who like that paid off for it, because like say a band like Emarosa went on after them, so all those kids were like piling to see them. But those that battle of the band stuff, I remember we tried to submit ourselves for that in the 8th grade, but you had to have songs, and we didn't.
As soon as you got inside of the gates there, I guess is where they used to set that up, or at least in St. Louis that's how they set it up. And like you said, it just folded up right out of the back of that truck. Terrible acoustics, not ideal whatsoever. Opportunity is an opportunity, and you got to, strike while the iron's hot. And it sounds like you kind of, took advantage, even though in your youth, finding your opportunity to get started in music, and sounds like it kind of started you on a path.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And now I have like the disease of always being in a band for the rest of my life.
Sure.
But I like it. Obviously I love what I do.
Absolutely, man. There's nothing quite like it. It's something I've always talked about here on our podcast quite a few times. The beautiful thing about playing music, playing out live for people, is that instantaneous connection, that instantaneous feedback. There's nothing like the adrenaline rush that you get when things are going well and people are feeling you and you're feeling the people. It's just a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I would agree.
So I know that in some things that I've read about your past as well, some formative things that you've kind of cited in your musical listening experience. I believe you were in high school, maybe even your senior year, whenever you heard Nothing's Guilty of Everything, so I know it's a very formative album for you. And you've also cited like the Tumblr community and being very helpful in, fleshing out and being kind of a Pandora's box for your musical interests and that sort of stuff. So talk a little bit about that for us.
Yeah. Well, Nothing. Dude, I wish I could go back and like relive that, because I've had moments where I find something new that like breaks my brain, and I'm like, all right, like this is my like lifestyle now. But just to like remember like scrolling on Tumblr and like seeing the cover of Guilty of Everything and asking myself, what is that? I wish I could do that 1,000 times again, because it was like, if truly you are right, like that is what set me on this course. Like I remember at the time was like the emo revival was like really popping on Tumblr. So, and like it was like maybe a couple years before American football got back together, before Mineral had gotten back together. But like, there's the Algernon Caldwalders, the Snowings, the Into It Over It's.
Title fights.
Yeah, exactly. And I still love all of that stuff, but it wasn't until like I don't remember if Dig or Bet Nail had to be the first Nothing song that I had heard, and I was like, yeah, this is it. And I think I said it before, but I'll say it again. I just remember like sneaking, like listening to it in my headphones in my hoodie and just walking through school all day listening, because it must have been the day it had came out. It felt like it was a Friday, so it was like March something in 2014, and like I'm just walking through school listening to this album over and over again. And dude, I just couldn't get enough of it, and it's perfect. Like there's so much about that album that like even still like I try to like do today. For instance, like Guilty of Everything's only 9 songs. And I think even on top of that too, Sway by Whirr is only 8 songs. And so like I don't think I'll ever do an album that's more than like 8 or 9 tracks, just because like the replay value of that all. Like the second the song Guilty of Everything is over, I'm like, yeah, go ahead, loop that back to him.
Yeah.
Like is one of the most perfect records ever to exist. Like I think yeah, Apple just did like that top 100 albums of all time.
Right.
And like, I don't think there was like a single shoegaze, like not even like the standard like classic shoegaze stuff was on
Right.
that list. But if I had worked at Apple, I would have been like some deranged coworker being like, no, this album that none of you guys have heard, like, promise you that like, and not to say that none other people have heard it, it's fucking gigantic.
Sure.
It's the new classic. But I would have been like fighting like tooth and nail to get that at least like make this fucking honorable mention like best album 101
Sure.
or something.
Sure.
Like Guilty of Everything is the fucking best.
I love it.
But on top of that too, dude, like Tumblr was the best. The way that kids today are, you know, finding out about things through TikTok.
Right.
Like that was Tumblr for me. Just like being on there countless hours and finding Touche and Law Dispute and
Yeah.
Self-Defense Family, like all of that stuff, Cold World,
Absolutely.
like all this stuff, because everything was like so local to me. Of course, like you have your big bands, but everything that was small or like things or bands that were playing like 100 cap rooms, it was only local bands that I knew about. Like the smallest local band to me was like Stick to Your Guns.
Yeah, that's funny.
Below that is like people playing. There used to be this venue out here in Rancho. Well, not here. I'm in Glendale now. But there's this venue called the Nitty Gritty, which was like this church venue. And like, so I would see like all like the Christian deathcore bands. Like they would sell that out. So like they were super big. But again, like local. Like that was what was local to Rancho, was Christian deathcore. And so now I'm like experiencing these local scenes of Philadelphia and New York and Chicago and, you know, Seattle had like some shit coming out of there at the time too. And like Tumblr was really, you're right, like that was the Pandora's box. Like it had it not been for kids on my school being like, yo, this MySpace shit is like for the birds, like we all got to get on Tumblr, like
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been here. I was just like gung-ho, like, yeah, like let me make a new internet profile.
Yeah. I remember I kind of lived through like the heart of the MySpace music days. That was kind of huge, and like the MySpace core bands and stuff that were coming out. And for some reason, like the Tumblr thing missed me, but Vine was kind of popular in my area for a bit. You know, I don't know if you recall that one.
No,
Yeah,
that was after, I was a Vine kid.
I was kind of into Vine, and then that quickly translated into Instagram, and I don't know if it's just because I'm like stuck in my old man ways, but I've been kind of stuck on Instagram for eternity. You know.
Well, there's like, you know, there hasn't, to be fair, like in the advancements of social media, like nothing, Twitter hasn't really like evolved at all since like I remember like when the Periscope thing was like a big deal, when you could like live stream on Twitter, but like I think that was their last technological advancement. But like Instagram 100% is like the be all end all, whether for better or for worse, depending on who you are. But
sure.
Yeah, man. Don't feel bad about being on Instagram. That's the shit.
No, not at all.
But
yeah,
dude, I loved Vine.
Yeah, man, Vine was the shit back in the day for sure. Now, I know that I don't know exactly what year, but I would say, kind of the ballpark, close to the pandemic time, I guess, is when you kind of officially started getting things together for Cold God. What time would you say that was?
Yeah, so I would say so the first Cold God record came out 2020, but a lot of those songs were for an old band that I was doing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the band where I was like really trying to figure out that like in my ears I was already transitioning over from emo to shoegaze, and so I was trying to do emo to shoegaze like within that band, and so like a lot of that stuff couldn't get fleshed out, but I was writing all this stuff that had like multiple guitar parts and was like loud. And like I was getting a lot of that stuff together like 2017. I'm sure like the oldest song I'd had was like from 2016. But back then not that I never did, but like I didn't really have like the time or the money to like really get a good studio album done. Like we kept doing like all these EPs, but like I always wanted to break that barrier of the record. So then COVID happens. And what do we get? Nothing but time and money, because boy was that unemployment the shit.
Yeah,
and then plus all the stimulus shit. So
right.
like I just had so much money saved up, and my idea with the money at the time wasn't making a record. It wasn't until Henry Stair, he plays guitar in that band Slowpoke.
Mhm.
He had
Great
posted on
band.
Insta. Yeah, fantastic band, and like fucking amazing how big they were. Because when we recorded Creative Pursuits, their album Movies hadn't come out yet,
Oh wow.
and he like played me a couple songs from it,
Mhm.
and I think they like shot the video for At It Again when we were recording Creative Pursuits, and he was like, yeah man, like I just really hope like this does something, and I was like 100% gung-ho. I was like, yeah dude, like of course. And
Took
now look
off.
at where they're at, which is
Yeah.
like so sick for
They were
Slowpoke.
just on that. I think they were just on that big Death Cab for Cutie Postal Service tour. At least
Yeah.
they opened in my area. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they opened most of that, or yeah, they did it in Europe, they did it in America. They're on, I think they're doing their own tour now, but I feel like they had like some other big thing, but they're just like, just going up and up and up. But
Very good songwriters for sure.
I need another Slowpoke full US
Yeah.
for
Absolutely.
sure.
Absolutely.
But to continue, so he records all of their stuff. So he was like, they were supposed to do some tour, and of course it got canceled. And he was like, I got nothing but time. Like if anyone wants to come record. And so I hit him up, like cold DM, like, hey, you don't know me, but I love what you do. So then we like set up the studio time and made that record happen. So that was like a collection of songs I had for a minute. A couple of the songs were like written in 2020, but it was like getting out all of that old stuff.
Sure.
And then immediately once Creative Pursuits came out, which was October 2020, I started writing God Get Me like 2 months later. So yeah, definitely big pandemic band for sure.
I know that a couple different things during the pandemic too kind of help, I think, go on to inspire some of the things you would go on to write. You know, of course, kind of your situation. I think I'd read that you were like working at a cafe at the time, and
Yeah.
we're kind of like tired of just like being clammed up, and caged up,
Mhm.
if you will, and so that's where things like God Get Me Out of Here and that those kind of concepts and ideas kind of came from. I believe I also read that you had gotten a present from your girlfriend
Yeah,
too,
exactly.
that kind of helped set the fire under you to kind of write some new music. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So the big thing for God Get Me was definitely the Pink Jazz Master, which is sitting not too far away from me right over here.
Wonderful.
But yeah, that was like the main catalyst. I think I had written maybe like one song before I got that guitar, but the second I got it, the whole rest of the album just flowed. And I wrote that in like 3 months before we had moved back to California. But I think like one time I was listening to a podcast, and Ian Shelton from Military Gun
Yeah,
had described guitars as tools. And so
definitely.
like you need a bunch of different, one guitar can write a bunch of stuff, but after maybe you need another one because that tool is not going to work with like this new sound that you're trying to convey. So once I got that new tool, but I was like, oh cool, perfect, I can write everything on this thing. Because before I had like this baby blue Jazz Master that I had bought myself, and that's what wrote all the old stuff. And it was like sort of like a shedding of like the skin, whatever, to like make
Yeah,
a new thing. And also Brandon Setta, who used to be in Nothing, he rocked a Pink Jazz Master too. And so that was like another big thing, was like I had always wanted a Pink Jazz Master, and for a while like they didn't sell them because the colors go in and out.
sure.
But it just so happened in 2020 they were like reissuing everything that was like like they had baby blue, they had baby pink, and
Right.
they were doing Jazz Masters, Jaguars, everything that had the coolest colors during the pandemic. So Fender get back to that. And so they had the shell pink Jazz Master, and just like sitting at Guitar Center, and I'd be like, dude, one day. And then my girlfriend got it for me for Christmas, and so that was the big moment for God Get Me.
I can speak to the fact that like a new piece of equipment like puts the wind in the sails of any musician though too. I know anytime that I get like a new guitar, I'm always like really excited to play on it. And so even, just that encouragement and that excitement to get out and play also kind of, inspires creativity, new ideas, especially if you're like feel more comfortable on the way the guitar is set up and that sort of stuff. I think I find a lot of music and my ability to create it relates a lot to where I'm at in life and my comfort playing too, so I'm a pretty big head case personally. So, the more comfortable I am, the better things go.
Oh yeah, for sure. And like that's the fun part in like learning new instruments, or even learning just new guitars, is like figuring out like how because everything plays so differently.
Definitely.
So it's like, what if my hands can't do this on this guitar, then my hands could probably do that on some other guitar. You're a guitar player?
Actually, my primary instrument is drums.
Oh,
But
sick.
out
Oh, well,
of
I mean, that's a whole different beast. Like
yeah,
you're dealing with like, I mean, guitars in a different way too, but like
sure,
that's different woods that like
definitely.
you're like, oh yeah, like mahogany makes this or whatever.
Definitely. Yeah, I started playing drums when I was 12, and then like my friends would always be like, "Hey, I'm trying to learn this new lead line. Sit down and play this rhythm for me." And yeah, I'm a pretty quick learner and play on time and got some dexterity and stuff like that. So I learned guitar very quickly, and rhythm is pretty much my strong suit. I mean, I can play some cowboy solos, some pentatonic scales and shit like that, But yeah, other than that, I like to do the shoegaze thing, wall of sound, sit down, tweak with pedals, just get weird with it. That's kind of my style, my personal style of guitar playing. That
What's
just
your
kind
pedal of choice?
Oh my God. I really like the Boss is it PS2 or PS3 pedals with the pitch shifter, and then you have the harmonization and stuff. You can do so much with those that people don't realize. You can do the bend downs or the bend ups, and you can do things in intervals of 3. There's just so much cool stuff that you can do with that pedal. I find myself like playing with that. But I'm like a very nasty distortion guy, and like I'm very fond of like rat distortion, so I guess if you're talking like always on, probably a lot of rat, especially if it's going to be any kind of dirty or gnarly, I'll have the rat pedal on. But if we're talking like modulation, I like to get weird with pitch shifting and harmonizations and things like that. How about for you?
Hell yeah. I think, well, it's funny you mentioned rat because I was definitely thinking about, I'm like digging into pedals again. I was very anti-gear for like the last decade. Like I never wanted to talk about it. I didn't want to buy anything new. But then like a lot of our shit had gotten stolen a couple tours ago. And so then like I was like rebuying stuff, and then there was like shit that I couldn't buy again. Like I used to have this old TC Electronic Trinity 2 that was like my reverb pedal, and they don't sell those on the site anymore. You have to like reverb or eBay it.
Yeah.
But I wanted to get something new, so I got the Hall of Fame 2, and like now that's got like the 3 tone prints in it. And so that's my main shit right now, because I just started fucking around with the tone print too.
Yeah.
But to get back to my regular point, I do want to buy a rat.
Yeah.
Because I think I need just like an easy overdrive on top of like the fuzz, and my go-to pedals for sure, like the mini Electro Harmonix Russian Big Muff.
Yeah.
That's like the best. That's the best. Besides I'd say the OCD, but that's just because what I fucked around. Like the OCD is like one of the most versatile pedals of all time. I think like when it comes to fuzz, the green Big Fuzz, that's Big Muff, that's the fucking one.
Yeah. I'm high on Big Muffs too. I know, like I love Dinosaur Jr. and Jay Mascis has been playing with those for years in particular, and I'm big on EHX and Earthquaker devices. Those are probably like my 2 favorite companies as far as consistency across the various effects that they make. But the pedal game can get very intimidating and very pricey too. So it's you got to be careful with that.
Exactly. That's kind of like when I first started getting into pedals was when I was like really looking into like the boutique shit. So that's where it gets to get like a bit more pricey. But I will say, man, like, and I was talking about it with someone on this last tour, but like Boss, man, is like, it's tried and true for a reason. And like those are pretty like inexpensive pedals. Like once you get into like the Wazacraft stuff, but that's cool to like sort of have like the entry level, and then it's like, oh, and then if you want like the prettier, like you want to fuck around with this some more, because I do want to get like that Wazacraft chorus. I usually use like the super chorus, but I want to fuck around with that Wazacraft one too. Even like the Wazacraft Overdrive sounds like just a bit better than the regular OD. I'm
a pretty big sucker for things that delays that kind of go into that area of like almost like organs, that type of modulation, like you're playing through a Leslie or something, or even like this has been pretty popular in the last few years, but like the shimmer reverbs and stuff like that's kind of the stuff that I'm drawn to. I've got like the EHX Caverns pedal. I think it's come out in the last 5 years. It's not a very old pedal, but I really enjoy that pedal in particular. Right? Yeah, or delay. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It's got like I think 12 different settings on it, and you can adjust the filter and the speed and everything. So yeah, it's a really fun pedal to play with, and I shamefully I pretty much just use it for the shimmer aspect, just because it's you find something you like and you stick with it, right?
Exactly, and like not too many pedals come with the shimmer effect. Now they're starting to,
Sure.
but like there was definitely only a few. Now I have the Hall of Fame 2's got a shimmer reverb, and then I think I have a DD7 for delay that has a shimmer
Those are
delay
nice.
on it too.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think it
great
broke
pedals.
a speaker on an amp. I doing fucking around with both, but they're
Yeah,
cool.
man. Yep, you can get quite dangerous, man, mixing them sound potions together sometimes.
Hmm.
For sure. Now, I know when you were working in that cafe, you were actually kind of like in the Chicago area, is that right? Because I know you're like
Yeah.
are you originally from Southern California? I know that's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Born and raised Rancho, and then my girlfriend and I moved to Chicago for a couple years.
What drew you guys out to Chicago, if you don't mind me asking?
Dude, the city. It's just,
Sure.
I mean, it's fantastic. Like, we went for the very first time 2017. I always forget the month, but I want to say like May of 2017. But I had been there a couple times before her, but when I took her, we went to a Cubs game. We went to my favorite chicken spot, which is our favorite chicken spot. Shout out Parsons Chicken and Fish in Logan Square. But just like the bars, the food, um, our friends who are out there now, the public transit
Yeah,
is like, New York's got New York, whatever. But
sure.
I think like Chicago is like just as good.
I think
Um,
Chicago feels at least a little bit more manageable, than New York. I think New York seems a little bit more overwhelming, even though it's got as much to offer as New York in
yeah,
many respects, for sure.
for sure. I would 100% agree with that. But yeah, Chicago is it's a beautiful place. And like the summer, there's nothing like the summer out there. Even winter is still good. Like it definitely lasts way too long. But winter is even beautiful. When you get that few little, like, couple days of spring are really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so nice out there. And like I can't speak for it too much anymore, but I remember when we first started going there and when we moved there, it still had like that sort of Midwest hospitality vibe going on with like everyone and everything. Like my grandma talks about, she lives out here, and she's like, you can't go into a bar and just like shoot the shit with anybody. And that's relatively true. Like if you go into like a dive in like the Inland Empire, but like
Yeah.
every bar in Chicago, like you're gonna sit down and like have some conversation about something out there, because like everyone's into everything, and if they're not, they're curious to know like what the fuck it is you got going on, and
Yeah.
you're gonna ask them what they got going on. Like, there's a lot of life to like all the streets out there.
What's funny is you're dropping some locations like the Inland Empire and stuff, in California. I know that's kind of native to your area, but
Hmm.
the Hard Lore episode just dropped today with Brax
Oh,
from
with
ZULU.
Brax, my boy,
Yeah.
shout out Brax,
Yeah. Shout out.
IE.
Yeah, he's the man. And they seriously are just like, it's almost like a geography episode for like 15 minutes of it, them just talking about that entire area and bands that have come out of that area, and they're talking about stick to your guns and stuff like that,
Hmm.
in particular. So it's really wild. If people don't know, like, educate yourself on a lot of amazing bands that have come out of that area in particular too.
Yeah, and everyone's like, it's like quiet how big, like, or like everyone's got like a sprinkle of something from like the IE. No, honestly, I've lived in Rancho my whole life, and I didn't know until a couple years ago that Soul Search was from there. Like in my head, I always just thought Soul Search was an LA band, which like not to discredit them or like add them any higher. I just always thought Soul Search was LA.
Sure.
And then I think we saw them open for Ceremony not too long ago, and they're like, and I think it's their bio on Instagram now, which is just Inland Empire Hardcore, but they like yelled it out, and I was like, no shit, huh? And
That's
like that was
awesome.
like just such like a cool fucking thing to champion. But
That's
yeah,
very
that
awesome.
IE is huge.
When you moved back out west, of course, you started looking for bandmates, and
Mhm.
I'm kind of curious, how that all came together for you. Once you've made it back out west, how easy did you were just like tapping into your old stomping grounds? Were these people that you already knew, or did you kind of start from scratch? I'm kind of curious to hear about how you fleshed the band out.
Yeah, it was all people I knew, and all
Okay.
people who everybody. Well, so now in the band, right? So our drummer Cam, guitar player Brandon, and tambourine and vocals Art, we all used to play in a band called Pathos together. And so like they were for sure like, the easiest guys to tap. to be like, yo, what's up? Like, I'm doing this new thing. What do you guys think? And they're like, hell yeah. And even like Devin, who plays guitar as well, I've known him for like a super long time, and we used to like our other bands would like play shows together, like, you know, we kind of like ran in the same circles but never did anything together. But he was like an easy add. But I bring all of them up to say, like, you know, they have all expressed before that they were like jaded, like they were, I guess, like coming out of COVID for them, like music was over. It was like, all right, I'm gonna do this other thing, like I'm gonna go get a career, or just like, you know, I'll play music for fun, but I'm not gonna do it in like a, you know, tour, or like get signed, put out albums sort of deal. So then I had the God Get Me demos. Actually, no, I think I asked everybody to play off of like the first round of mixes for God Get Me.
Okay.
So that way I had like a really good body of work to show people. Because before, all of my recordings were ass. And so I knew I needed to have like something good to like bring everybody in. And so, you know, I'm sending everyone the first round of mixes, and they're like, holy shit, like this is good. Like, yeah, like let me help. I'll do what I gotta do. And Duck, our bass player, you know, they had never been in a band before. We tried to do like a hardcore thing at one point, but it never panned out. But I had like told Duck one day, I was like, yo, you should like pick up bass. Like, I don't know, like, you know, we could use you for pathos as like a fill-in sometimes. Like, you should just like figure out the bass. And like they kind of took a crack at it during COVID, nothing too crazy. And then I come knocking like, hey, time to play bass. You ready?
Nice.
But yeah, I'd known everybody for a good minute by the time I had asked everyone to be in the band.
Duck's got the stage presence, I will say. All the live videos that I've seen of you guys, you know, they're right there neck and neck right up front with you, typically rocking out, and love to see it, you know, love to see the energy that you guys bring to the live show. You're going to, you know, be involved in the music, involved in the performance as a fan. I know that's what I look for as a show goer, is people up there, you know, expressing the emotionality of the music that they're playing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's like, I don't know, I've just seen too many bands where people don't do anything.
Sure.
And it's like, you know, I'm all for like playing something. Like if you're a band that like wants to play something like to a T and like have it sound like exactly like it does on the album, like I'm with that. Like I love Beach House. Like Beach House isn't running around back and forth on stage like we are. Like, you know, you don't want Interpol like going all crazy. You want Turn on the Bright Lights to sound like Turn on the Bright Lights.
Sure.
But I think like when it comes to like the type of shows that we play, I know everyone always thinks this, and it sounds like maybe trite for like small rude people, but like, why don't we all just try to be Title Fight and Turnstile?
Sure.
Like it worked for them, and like they were active. Like everyone in Title Fight, even like, you know, Jamie and Shane, like they're not jumping up and down all crazy like say Ned is, but like, you know, when they're in their pocket and they're moving, like you can tell that they're feeling it, and like that resonates. I mean, directly back with the crowd, and everyone's jumping off stage, and I mean Turnstile, like, you know, everyone in that band is like going off on every corner, even like D-Fang as a drummer, like he's sitting down but he's ripping it, and you can see it from all angles.
Freaky Friends diving in the crowd, rolling out into the crowd, playing bass.
Yeah. That it works for them. It hasn't quite worked out for us yet, but we'll make it happen. But,
absolutely. Hey man, everybody's learning, and there's nothing wrong with that, you know. Rome wasn't built in a day, right? So
that is true. We are truly getting this empire together for fucking stage divers. But yeah, like it's so important to like pop off, because then it's like, wow, like you see what they did? You know, there's a lot of bands that they just stand. I would say maybe not half, but I would say like a good percentage of bands just like stand around. And so my thinking was that if we're gonna play with bands that stand around, like we of course got to do some shit to like set ourselves apart from that.
Sure.
And it's hard to do some things to like set yourself apart, especially like in the guitar music realm, because every chord has been played. You know, we're all just playing like different variations of the stuff that we really liked, which is cool. No knock to that. But it's like, all right, well, what are those other elements that you can do to set yourself apart from everybody else on the bill?
Right.
You know, because it is like, you know, you want to have a good show, but there's a good amount of healthy competition. Like we just did that tour with Spiritual Cramp and Ultra Q. Yeah. And we all talked about it, like, you know, we all like want to make sure we're all gonna bring our A game that night, and we started the show, so it's like, all right, we're gonna go hard, and so that means everyone else is gonna go hard, and then this is gonna be a great show for the viewer.
Did you all
But
not
like,
have some dates with Gouge Away and or Metz recently as well?
yeah,
Yeah.
so we did one show, and then we're doing that tour with Gouge Away in November.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did open for Gouge Away and Metz, which was really cool. That happened like super last minute. I'm just at work and I get an email from someone at Golden Voice, and they're like, "Hey, we have this amount of money for you to open for Metz and Gouge Away. Are you in?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, I'm in." What?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's an opportunity you don't want to pass up. And that, I mean, Metz is one of those bands that's always tinkering with their sound, and God love them for it, man, because that's incredible. You know, they're always doing amazing stuff. But you
Oh
know,
yeah,
if it ain't broke, you ain't got to fix it sometimes. But somehow they find a new way to push themselves as artists and still make very intriguing and you know, wonderful and fantastic music. That new album this
yeah,
year is one of my favorites, and of course, Gouge Away's Deep Sage is top 3 albums this year for me
fantastic.
right
Dude,
now.
I
Just
love it
incredible
so
work.
much. I love Deep Sage so much.
Yeah, and then once you like read the info on the album when it came, you know how they recorded everything live, and Christine Michelle's just in a vocal booth separate of all the instrumentation going on, and they're performing them tracks like from start to finish, and any
Mhm.
edits made were made the old school way, like cutting tape and shit and splicing it. Like I'm
Yeah.
like, please, man, bring this back because you can feel that energy, you know, with what the production is on this album.
Yeah, you can hear like all the intentionality that went into that record. And like I think that's a big thing. Like those are when you can feel like it's almost like an unspoken, like, of course not, there's nowhere going to be in like the credits or at the end of the album like, oh, and by the way, everything we did was intentional. But it's
Sure.
like it's unspoken to you and you feel it as the listener. Like that's how you end up having like a classic album, whether it's like classic within your discography or within the genre or just like an all-time record. Like when you do shit like that, that's how it's gonna propel. And like, even I know people might not want to classify Gouge Away as hardcore, even they might not want to classify themselves as that, but like I would call Deep Sage, if you're not gonna call it hardcore, I would call like Deep Sage is a top 10 non-core record of all time.
Yeah, it's definitely comes from that world, especially earlier Gouge Away stuff. I think they're again one of those bands that's just kind of tooled with their sound over the years, but there's definitely plenty of hardcore noise rock moments on Deep Sage for sure. You know, and I mean it totally in a complimentary fashion for sure. Talking about opportunities coming together at the last quote unquote last minute. I don't know how last minute this was, but I got to take the opportunity to mention, of course, the fact that you got to play that wonderful Deftones festival back in
Yeah,
2022.
yeah.
I know that Chino had stumbled upon you guys through a mutual friend that was recording your live set, and you
Yeah.
got like a out of the blue email from like Live Nation, you know, you guys
Mhm.
want to play this? What an incredible opportunity. Let's talk about that a little bit too while we're on it.
Yeah. How did that come together? So we had played a show at El Cid here in LA where we're playing with Gouge Away too. And it was our first time playing there. And it was our first time, I think it was our first time playing with Luster too, which like to me, that was the big deal of the night, was playing with Luster, because I was just such a fan of their shit. So I was like, dude, I finally get to hear it live. And then Estrada also played too. But we get Gibby into the show, Gibby from DAIS, and he brings Josh Eustace. He does that group Telefon Tel Aviv, and they were there watching the set. And Josh comes up to me after the set, and he was like, you guys got a little something." And I was like, "Dude, thanks. Like that means a lot." The next day, Josh sends me a text and he's like, "You won't believe who I'm talking to about you guys right now." And I didn't want to push the issue and be like, who? I was like, hey man, like I appreciate you, like, you know, just putting like our name out there. Like, thank you.
Yeah.
And I don't hear from him so this is like June or July of that year or something. And then like a month later, just cold email from Live Nation, like, "Yo, Deftones wants you to play the fest. Like, are you down?" Quiet secret. So I had never listened to Deftones. Like I knew the hits, but I wasn't like a big Deftones head the way that, like, especially when you listen to God Get Me and like Moving to California would make you assume. So I mean, obviously I'm not dumb. Like I know that they're the shit, and like now I really enjoy them. Like I love,
Sure.
like I remember the Coachella live stream was going on, and I was like checking the clock because I knew I had to watch the Deftones set. But you know, so, and all the guys in the band knew that too. So I had like screenshot the email and I sent it to him, and I was like, "What do you guys think?" And everyone else in the band are like way bigger Deftones fans, and so they were like, "Dude, like they're losing their shit." And then I fuck with them and I respond back like, "I think I'm gonna turn it down," which was not true. And
That's
so
hilarious.
like in the same text where I told them I was gonna turn it down, I had emailed them back and I was like, yeah, of course, like we're open and available, like let's lock this in. And I guess I didn't tell them that I had done that. And so and no one wanted to talk to me about it because they were like, wow, like he really turned that down. I may be remembering it wrong, but I believe everyone in the band at the time didn't know we were playing the Deftones thing until the flyer came out.
Oh wow,
And then they were
what
like,
a way to
or
find
like
out.
what, yeah, or like when I had sent them like the artwork, they were like, "Oh, holy shit, like it's real." Hell yeah, dude. That was like the biggest show. I think probably still to this day is like the biggest show that we've played because they're like, I think it's like 6 or 7 thousand tickets sold, and like we opened the thing, but there for sure had to be like somewhere between 2 to 3 thousand people watching us
Yeah,
on like the little side stage because of like, you
no
know,
shame, no shame in that.
they've built up this community for Dia de los Deftones, and so people are
Yeah,
just gonna hang out all day.
yep,
And so they brought like a lot of people to come check us out early, which was super sick. And right before we went on stage, we got to like talk to them really quick.
that's
Uh,
awesome.
which was that was super sick because like
Wow,
I didn't think I was gonna get to talk to them. Like it's their show. Like I figured they just would have been busy like
sure,
dealing with shit, right? It just so happened where the green rooms were for everybody was like 20 steps away from where they were doing like for fans who'd done like the VIP meet and greet package. Where they were taking the photos with everybody was like by the green room. So we're walking out to get to stage and they're taking a picture with like the last kid from the VIP and we just like bum rush them because they're like, yeah, I don't think we're gonna see them the rest of the day. I
sure,
had seen Chino walking around, but he looked like busy, so I didn't want to say
sure.
anything to him. But we're like, yo, we're Cold God, like, thanks for having us. And they're like, oh yeah, like, you guys are sick. Yeah, thanks for playing. You guys going on now? All right, cool. We'll be there in a second. It's just
Nice.
like super easy. Like, you guys toured yet? And we're like, no. We're about to go on our first weekend in a couple weeks, and they're like, dude, good luck.
That's awesome. A band like them, obviously the accomplishments and all the wonderful things that they've done throughout their career to give you guys a chance to like that is just obviously super helpful. And it's, wonderful to hear things like that, that they still have that spirit about them, that they want to bring people up that are on the come up as well. It doesn't surprise me being a lifelong Deftones fan. I've been there since the start, they're
Yeah,
up there. They're probably, on my Mount Rushmore of bands, probably of all time.
hell
I've
yeah.
got every album on vinyl, countless shirts with holes in them because they've been
Mm-hmm.
worn to death. Big fan of all the side projects, Crosses, Team Sleep, all that
Yeah.
stuff's wonderful as well. But man, what an incredible opportunity. I'm so happy to hear about it. And you also, they bring variety with those shows that they do. You guys got to play with Turnstile was also on that same fest that you
Yeah,
guys were
that was
on.
a big deal.
Fantagram, I think that's a big
Yeah.
deal as well.
Freddie
So
Gibbs was the big one for like
yeah,
everyone in the band. We all love Freddie. And
yeah,
so like him, like being able to play with him, like I mean Turnstile, Deftones, like all of that shit. But I was like, when else truly like when else well, let me not sell myself short. We'll play with Deftones again. But, you really have to think, especially when we were like because we were tiny. I would say I think we were the tiniest band who's ever played that festival. Like in terms of like because now like they have their new lineup and so I was like just clicking through like everyone's Instagrams and
yeah,
everyone has like thousands upon thousands of followers and I
sure.
think at the time like that we got added we had under a grand in like Instagram followers, so like for sure like the tiniest band. So like with that in mind, like playing with Deftones or Turnstile or Freddie is like a once in a lifetime, like dude, like whenever again.
Right.
Like, with Deftones and Turnstile, it's like a little bit easier because like that's our world, that's guitar music. But like with
Sure.
Freddie, I was like, dude, I don't know if this will ever happen again. Like
Yeah.
I really got to enjoy this moment. So like it was fantastic. Like one of the best days ever. Until I drank too much of the free beer that they gave us. I
Hey
drank too
man,
much.
when in Rome sometimes, right?
Yeah, it was one of those things where dude, it was like such a good day and like the adrenaline after the set or like
Sure.
it was done. Like up until after we were done, like going up until getting on stage, I was like, yeah, this is fine, like another day in the office. And then after like the gravity of the whole thing hit me.
Yeah.
Damn, dude.
And
like,
then the come
this-
down, I'm sure, was horrific as well. And I'm a kind of guy, like, I get a little anxious sometimes. So a couple beers don't hurt to, have to calm the nerves.
Yeah,
and
a couple or 20.
yeah, I was going to say
anywhere
the
between
couple
that.
turns into 20 very quickly sometimes.
Yeah, and the Deftones beer, like they had like their collab stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all really good. They haven't put it out yet, but for when we played, they did like a Mexican cerveza, and that was so good. You can get the Phantom Bride anywhere now, but I forget what they call this one. But whatever their Mexican lager was, like that is maybe the best beer, and they need to can that and sell that in stores.
Well, you're talking my love language right there. Mexican
Yeah.
lagers. Love them to death. Well, you kind of touched on this too a little bit, and I want to lean into this point is I feel like you guys have a plethora, a cultivation of inspirations and things. I think that's kind of apparent, if somebody would go back and look at like your covers EP, for example, like just some of the artists that you covered on your covers EP in and of itself just kind of shows the variety of stuff that you're a fan of, even, things like Childish Gambino, stuff like Snow Allegra, stuff like White Lighters, whirr seems a little bit more obvious, I would say. But, it's nice to see that variety. And, again, in the write-up, talking about having R&B influences as well. As a listener, as a fan of music, I think it's evident to me. But, how do you think that kind of mixes into your guys' formula as a band?
It's one of those things where I think it just shows up because that's like what we all listen to a lot, especially like when it comes to singing. Like I love all the R&B like songstresses of like now, like I love SZA or like Naomi Sharon, and like when I sing, like I want to try to sing like them because like their voice is their instrument, right? And so with shoegaze. And like I do it just like everyone else, but like the vocals are a bit more drony, or if sometimes they fit like that usual like rock pocket.
Yeah, or they're behind in the mix too. That's kind of another challenge that if you're kind of following the tropes of shoegaze music, often the thing is to kind of put it behind in the mix, so it's more viewed as an accentuating instrumentation, whereas it's more forward in the mix with a lot of other genres too.
Right. And like when I'm singing, like when I'm laying down vocals in the studio, I'm trying to think like, all right, like how would Solange do it? Like, let me channel her so that way I can like hit this note or like make something feel more like soft.
Yeah.
As opposed to like just delivering the line. You know what I mean? A lot of it too is like if I hear like a song, like I'm sure there's like a couple tabs in my phone right now that are like Pink Pantheress, like passion chords. Like I just want to play, a lot of that stuff is like piano chords. And so it's like, how can I make like those like minor and major seventh chords, over on guitar, and like how do I make it these like sad, fuzzed out reverb songs? But I think it also like translates into like how we present ourselves to everything is aesthetic now. Everything is Instagram. Yes. So if everything's Instagram, it has to have an aesthetic. And I think shoegaze has an aesthetic that is for sure like if you can make it work for you, I think it's great. But to me, I've seen it so much of it where it's like the photos with like the slow lens capture, so it has the light leaks on it, or like the fog, which I want to bring back to our shows too. Like I'm not hating on fog, but there's like the photos, like every picture of a shoegaze band is trying to emulate the Loveless cover, just in different colors. But then I see like Ye or West Side Gun and like how they promote their stuff, and it's like, oh well, that's an aesthetic that's not over on this side of music. And like to me that's like that pulls me in. Like when West Side Gun does those little like VHS videos with BT's we're never gonna hear him rap on, I love that. I'll watch the whole thing. He's not spitting, it's just a loop over and over again, but it's him like super iced out eating at like Ruth Chris, or like I'm at the pyramids, and like to me that's super sick.
Absolutely.
Or even like Tyler the Creator, like this album we've like definitely messed around with color a lot more, and like turning up like the saturation on some of the videos, because like blue is such a vibrant color. And like you look at all the Call Me If You Get Lost, like the videos and the promo for that record, like everything is just so bright. Like the greens are green, the blues are blue, and like the pink on like, even if it's just like a little accent on like the cardigan that he's wearing, like that's showing up. You know, stuff like that, or like how Bill Strobeck does like all the Supreme videos.
Mhm.
Like again, those are just aesthetics that I'm sure people have picked their bits and pieces from it, but it's like, no, let me bring this in like full time. Like this is what we do.
For sure. And you mentioned earlier too, you know, you as a band try to think of things that you can do. So many chords can be played. There's only so many notes. Everybody's played them at this point. Like, what can we lean into? Whether it's how we present ourselves or stage presence, you know, a part of the aesthetic that you are designing as well for your band, I think is something to take note of and commend you guys for, especially a lot of the
Thank you.
promotional materials, you know, that you guys are doing. I can tell that there's a skilled eye and a thought put behind that stuff, you know, even if somebody would just peruse or skim over your Instagram. Very aesthetically pleasing to look at, you know, your promotional videos, you know, your 2 singles and the artwork that's for that. You guys are kind of fallen into a color palette. You know, I'm a huge cinephile, so I'm always looking at like, you know, how to do this like in Adobe, you know, like to get these color grains and stuff like that, you know. So you guys are really dialed into that world, and I have a huge appreciation for that.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot. Yeah, that like, you know, as much as I think we've mentioned a couple times, you know, Instagram, it's like it's the thing.
Sure.
Again, good or for bad, but I will say like what I think when the first phone call I ever had with Gibby, he said the same thing that you were saying, where he's like, dude, like I love the Instagram. And I was like, yes.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you know, the songs, like I have like complete faith in the songs. I mean, I have faith in the Instagram too, but like
Sure.
the songs, it's like it's this tangible thing, the music, where it's like, no, I know it's good. Like, do you hear that part? Do you hear
Sure.
that part? But
Sure.
when it comes to like visual stuff, like that's a whole different style of taste. And so when I hear that people like it,
I think it's something
that
like
means a lot to me.
subconsciously, like consumers in general look for. But I know it's something that more consciously that I look for in recent years is bands that have it figured out. You know, it's easy to look back at the yesteryears of your failed and wishful endeavors as a musician, and I'm speaking for myself here, but that is
Nah,
to
we're
like
in the same boat. We're in the same boat.
what could I have done better? You know, what didn't I have figured out back then? And I'm really encouraged by seeing folks, you know, of a younger generation such as yourself that have got these things figured out already, and it's like wisdom beyond your years. So I always like to lean into that part of the conversation and let people know, you know, like, you know, you play in 3D chess while some other folks are still playing checkers. So, you know, that's some stuff that you can't teach people sometimes.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. That is like 100% what we're trying to do.
I know, of course, we've talked about God Get Me the Fuck Out of Here, the 2022 full length, technically your second full length, right? And that was your first one with DAIS Records as well. So let's talk about how that relationship started with DAIS Records, if you don't mind me asking.
Oh, yeah. No, not at all. I love this story. So we had played, and this goes back to Brax, actually. So we played, so Brax was putting together this festival of all, like, it was supposed to be like Black and like people of color artists, this like festival that happened in Limart Park in LA at the Barbara Morrison Convention Hall. I forget the last 2 parts, but it was a Barbara Morrison thing. And she was there, we met her, which was crazy. But Brax had asked Duck and I's hardcore band, he's like, yo, like blow the dust off that thing and like come play this show. And I had told Brax, I said, we'll do it, but Cold God has to play. And he was like, hold on, let me see if we can fit you on the bill. And then he's like, all right, cool, that works. And so it was us, and our old band was called Black Guilt. So it was Cold God and Black Guilt were on it. And then, you know, Duck kind of like a couple weeks before was like, I can't do it, because Duck would sing in that band. At this point, this was like our 6th or 5th show. Like this is early into Cold God. And so Duck is still like getting there, like footing, just being a bass player. And so then to like kind of have all the attention flipped on you as the singer, you know, was a lot at the time. And now I think Duck should front like 100 bands. But so Black Guilt dropped, but Cold God still got to stay on. So we played the show, and that website Cold Nation did a piece on the show. And we didn't get like, there was like a bunch of blurbs for all the bands that played except for us. Like it was just like Cold God, a photo, and a video. But I was like, hey, like this is still sick. Like this is like one of our first write-ups too, or like first like pieces on a blog. And then Sean had reached out and was like, dude, I love the record. And just like saying all these nice things, and like his family likes it, the kids like it. And he was like, I'm going to do a whole piece on you guys, check it. And I was like, cool. Next week, this huge piece about God get me the fuck out of here and how much he loves it. And then another week goes by or so after that, and he's like, hey, I hope you don't mind, but I've been shopping you around to a couple people, like sending your records. And he was like, there's 2 people who are interested, but Gibby wants to get on the phone with you right now. He's like, what do you think? And I've been a huge fan of DAIS since 2014. Like, I got into them through Youth Code. And the second I found Youth Code, I found the label. And then I just got into everything that they did. I listened to like almost everything. Because now I'm like going back and I'm like, how did I miss this one? How did I miss that one? But like Cold Showers, Them or Us 2, the Psychic TV reissues.
Cold Cave, I think, is a legacy artist of theirs as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's like, Gibby wants to get on the phone with you right now. And I was like, let's do it. Because like, that's literally like, besides like Run for Cover of like the Tumblr era, DAIS is my favorite label. So I get Gibby on the phone. We're talking. And he's already like game playing. He's like, well, first he was like, yo, like, I love the music. And he's like, I would love to do a record with you, like full brand new record. And he's like, but how would you feel about taking down God Get Me and having us put it out? Because I had put God Get Me out myself just digitally. And he's like, what if you take it down and we give it like a proper rollout? Like, what do you think? And I was like, dude, let's do it. Hell yeah. And then he's already spitballing like numbers for like units of vinyl and CD. And like,
wow.
We're already talking like, all right, yeah, so like we'll reissue Moving too, like we'll do that on this day, the record will come out on this day. Like he was already game planning.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, fuck yeah, dude, like this is great. Like this is the best thing that's ever happened. But yeah, so Sean from Cult Nation had hooked us up, and I owe Sean like everything. Anything I can't say thank you enough to him, and like I see him like every time we go up to Vancouver, but like that was like, again, one of the on top of like Deftones, like that was one of the best days ever.
And DAIS has got some of my favorite artists, in particular High Vis. I'm really excited about the new High Vis record. It's
High Vis is
fantastic
sick.
band. So yeah, if people haven't checked out that label, I highly encourage them to do so. But I also want to go back to your comment about Brax, and I know I brought him up earlier as well. So
yeah,
you know, it's a funny thing because I think there's some correlation between you guys and spirit, and that is, I know that I've seen like slogans that you've chanted in the past, and it's been things to the effect of, you know, like, let's make shoegaze black again. And Brax has said things like, you know, of course the handle for ZULU is Black Power Violence, and he was talking about like the hate that they got whenever they went over in Germany in particular,
right,
to like the t-shirts that they had made up and stuff. People look at those comments just the same as, unfortunately, the ignorance that went behind things like that were being spoken out against Black Lives Matter and that sort of stuff. People want to try to find the negativity or look at it as the glass half empty. But those comments that you guys are making is actually, it's like, we're going to demolish all these preconceived notions that people have about stuff, and it's going to be a more inclusive thing, actually. And it just doesn't have to be a white thing. It can be an everybody thing. You know, I think people like misinterpret those, we'll just say, slogans, for an easy term at the moment, but what the meaning is behind them, really.
Yeah. I mean, it truly is like, it's more like about inclusion. It's just like, you gotta smack motherfuckers in the face sometimes.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
With these things, you know, and
yes.
like, you know,
it's sensationalism grabbing attention, and then it gives you the opportunity to talk your message, right?
Exactly. And I think like mainly, you know, a big deal to me was just like making sure kids who look like me like feel more comfortable like coming to shows.
Sure.
You know, like when I was going to shows back in the day, like the only black kids who were going were all like my friends from back home. So it was like me, Doug, our friend Kai, and our friend DeAndre. Like it was just us 4. We were the only 4 black kids at like all the shows. And like that was great. Like it was good to have that sort of community, but it was like, there's no one besides us.
Right.
You know, that felt like, and then, you know, like other people start to get other interests and like stop going to shows. Like I'm still going. And then, you know, I'm starting to see, you know, less and less, you know, black people at shows. So I'm just trying to see more motherfuckers who look like me, like enjoying the same shit as me. Like I know I'm not alone in my interest. I'm not singular, but you know, I think like stuff like that to kids who might be like super nervous, like especially if you're young, you go to a show by yourself for the first time.
Definitely.
And like there's kind of no one you can sort of like lean on
Right.
to like make you feel more comfortable, like you might not go back. And so really like it's just trying to get like more black kids to feel comfortable to like come to shit. And like also, which is like sick about shoegaze right now, is like a lot of the top dogs in the genre are all people of color.
Yeah.
And like, you know, people like talk over and over again. And listen, I love MBV, I love Slow Dive, like
Right.
all of the classics, like I love them. But
Sure.
you know, like the people almost go back to those a bit too often,
Sure.
to where like, you know, we gotta big up these kids right now. Like, you know, all like the Glare kids are like
Yeah.
POC, Wisp POC, Glixen POC,
Yep.
us POC. And so kids like constantly just talking about Loveless over and over and over again. Like there's new bands who are doing this and they look a lot different than like the like quote unquote status quo. Even like Death of Heather's from the I think they're from the Philippines or Vietnam or something like that.
Mhm.
If you haven't heard of them, check them out for sure. But yeah, it's just like it's just changing. Brack said it really good on Hard Lore, where he was like, it's like changing the idea of like no more tokenization. It
Yes.
just fits alongside everybody else.
Absolutely. Yeah, I 100% agree. And don't get me wrong, there's always going to be those negative people out there, you know, that, you know, look to be a contrarian or whatever the case is, or look for a negative thing to say, you know, and it's what I call the bad apple rule. You know, you can't win them all, but, you know, as far as I'm concerned, fuck those people.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know?
for sure. And like these are
And
people who like never had to think about it like that.
right.
And so when someone is like out there challenging
Their thought.
this
Yeah.
idea
Yeah.
where it's like, and, you know, I think there are like some people who take it as like, you know, we're calling them racist, which is like not true at all.
Further
But or like
thing.
people like, why is everything always about race? And it's like I like either you don't live in America or
Right.
like you're very like blind to just like the society, like just society as a whole. Like everything is about race.
Right.
Like obviously I'm not trying to like beat people down all the time,
Right.
but you see stuff and it's like, I mean, like, you know, south side of every city
Yes.
is still like it's poor and they keep them brown down there, you know?
Yeah.
Like you can't ignore that sort of thing. So everything in America is about race.
Sure.
But, you know, we have to do these, I think like, you know, everyone in ZULU and Cold God and everyone else like has like these cool platforms to be like, nah, like come on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because even like I saw like what Rotting Out and like Soul Search were doing, like, you know, for all the Hispanic kids and hardcore. Like there was a time in California where I think it was like 99% Hispanic kids, and then it was like that 1% was split between white kids and me. And like that was so sick to see. So it's like
Yeah.
we can make that happen in any genre, you know?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm all about inclusion and encouraging folks. I mean, who knows what talents over the years have been trampled upon, quieted, just because maybe that they just didn't feel, you know, welcome or included, or that they had some path or avenue that they could follow, or that it was a realistic dream for them to, you know, pursue, or whatever the case is. So, you know, I'm all about the messages that you guys are preaching, and, you know, 100% you got an advocate here.
Hell yeah, man. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And you kind of talked about earlier too about being a fan of Beach House. You know, I kind of read some of your inspirations and working into the new album that's going to be released at the end of this month, and I'm very excited about. You know, I was super pumped with the first singles coming out. Of course, you've got Gorgeous out now, and we've got All My Life, My Heart Has Yearned for a Thing I Cannot Name. Both incredible singles. So encouraged me enough to pre-order it, and it's going to be out the 30th of this month. Really
right.
looking forward to that. That's I'll Drown on This Earth. And you're going back to that 8-track listing, I see.
Yeah.
So
Tried and
excited,
true.
so excited about this album.
Thank you.
You made a comment earlier though too about, you know, Beach House being kind of you're a big fan of them. And I think I'd read somewhere in passing that, you know, some of that was in behind the inspirations here. I mean, it's easy to go to things like Loveless, but, you know, I think you named some post-hardcore works and Drake, and that a lot of influences are going to show up on this album. So I'm really excited to hear that too.
Yeah, dude, the Beach House thing. I think that was like that was definitely the main catalyst into writing this record, because I remember at the time. Now this is where my memory starts to get a little hazy, but I believe around the time, so I've known about Beach House forever, but I just like was never really into them. And so then as Cold God gets started, I'm thinking about the elements to add to the live show. And I had always heard that Beach House was a good live band. And so I'm watching, it's like live at King's Theater is the Beach House thing. And this is like end of 21 going into 22 and the years. And then I start working at the post office. I was a postman for a little bit. I had to do like these early morning trainings. And so I would like wake up, it's 4 a.m, and one morning I just decided, like, you know what? Let me pop in Depression Cherry. Like, what is this album all about? And like Levitation clicks on, and it's the first song that they play in the King's the live set that I saw. So I was like, all right, cool. They start the set with that, like this has got to be the album. And 1,000% it's the album. Just like I'm driving in my Jeep to like the shitty fucking like boring people are gonna talk to me in like a bad classroom for like 8 hours,
Yeah,
tell you about delivering mail, but like I just got so emotional like listening to
incredible.
Depression Cherry for the first time, driving from Rancho to like Santa Ana. And I was like, yeah, like this is what music should be. And so I was like, all right, let me write a record like that. So like every song I'm trying to sort of try to catch a feeling that like Beach House gave me. So like, you know, Levitation and Gorgeous don't sound alike at all. But I remember like that was a big thing because I knew that was going to be track one. It's like, how can I like deliver something as strong as Levitation in like a Cold God sense? And so that's how like Gorgeous comes to be. Or like Bird in Space, like the last song on Depression Cherry, which is also 9 tracks by the way, has Days of Candy at the end, and that one just fucks me up.
Yeah.
And there's this live version of they play at Pitchfork Fest. It's even like hits even harder. And again, I was like, all right, like what's that? Like the way that like that choir comes in at the beginning or that chorus that's at the end of the song, like just making it Cold God, and like that's how Bird in Space happens. And so again, I'm just trying to capture like everything I felt as I went through Depression Cherry top to bottom. I was like, cool, like this is my take on that.
That's awesome. I'm really happy to hear that. Yeah. A similar relationship with Beach House for myself. You know, it's a band that I've heard over time. Yeah, it was some time back. My family, we did like a family vacation down in Pensacola, technically Pensacola Beach. We stayed in a hotel at Pensacola, saved a little bit of money, and just drove down to the beach every day to, you know, partake in the activities and the beach life and all that fun shit. My wife and I, we got small children. The drive into and out of kind of gave us that moment to kind of like decompress and reset and kind of calm the kids down and that sort of stuff. So for whatever reason, this is about 7-8 years ago, I decided, yeah, I'm going to throw on, you know, some Beach House, give it more time than I have in the past. You know, I was kind of a singles guy with them.
Yeah.
You know, so albums start to finish, Depression Cherry being one of them. And it just fit the mood, the night driving. You know, I'm a big night drive guy with the windows down, crank the music to 11, you know, get in your feels, you know, and enjoy the feeling, the atmosphere. And boy, that album just hit. And it's, you know, whenever you can kind of tie albums to memories and that sort of stuff, it's always going to hold a special place in my heart for in and of that reason. But I say all that to say this, and I think your guys' music is kind of on this path as well. Is I think that people should really give musicians, if they like what they hear, you know, the singles or whatever the case is, give these artists the time of day to listen to their artwork from start to finish. An album is a concept, a piece of art that a lot of thought, literal blood, sweat, and tears have went into for many of these artists. And, you know, there's a real methodical layout and rollout sometimes, in more cases than not. Intentionality between the track listings and how the songs ebb and flow betwixt each other. Again, I'm going to get on my soapbox here, but give these artists a start to finish listen so you can get a real idea of what they are trying to do as musicians and as artists and express themselves.
Yeah, that's beautifully put. And especially listen to the album start to finish, because Bird in Space is my favorite song, and that's the last track on the album. So you gotta make sure you get all the way through, because like you said, it's like you also like, this isn't like a concept record by any means, but like, you know, obviously like when it comes to like putting track listing together, you're still weaving a narrative. And so it's like you can't just like pop around and like you can hear the songs and they're good, but like hearing it within that like start to finish like context is like you get the whole story. And like 2022 was like a big year because like it started with Beach House and then it ended with my girl and I were able to go see them as they were like finishing up the Once Twice Melody tour. And so that was like just like a big encapsulation of my year, was like picking apart all those pieces of Beach House to like bring them into Cold God. And I feel like you hear that from start to finish in Drown. And I don't know if you'd be able to pick that up just listening to like Malibu Beach House, which is a great song. Like it's a banger. But I don't think you gotta hear Gorgeous into Portland, and then I can name all the tracks, but you put it very eloquently. There is a lot of like time and attention that goes into things, and like I'm all for the playlist. Like the playlist definitely help like get your name out there. It's almost like being on playlist is almost as good as like going on tour and getting new fans.
Sure.
But when it comes to like the album experience, I think it is starting to come back, and you can see it too with like Brat and like Chapel Roan, like these big pop stars. Like these technically should be the people where, not that they shouldn't, and this isn't me like dismissing pop as a genre, but like you would think that that's like here's the single here,
right?
And like we're just gonna playlist these and like get them their radio play, but like I can't speak for Chapel Roan's record because I've never heard it, but like I can speak for Brat, and like all the way through, like you can feel it like start to finish. It's like it's just as good of an album as like, and not like comparatively, but like weaving a narrative as like My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy,
Sure,
or The Blueprint, or I'll Drown on This Earth, out August 30th.
Hell yeah. Well, I know also on August 30th, of course, you guys are playing a show. I don't know if that's branded as an album release show for you guys.
Yeah.
In LA, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So who all are you playing with on that show?
We're playing at Genghis Cohen with none other than Brittany Drake, who's in Pity Sex. Pity Sex is one of my favorite bands of all time.
Pity Sex rules.
I had seen Brittany do a solo show at that restaurant Burger Lords out here, and I was like, you know what, like, let me ask her to do that again, but like,
that's awesome.
like not the same show, but like play it for our set, and she was like 100% into it, which was like so sick to me. So I can't wait to hear whatever she's gonna pick to play, and one day we'll play with Pity Sex 2 full band, but playing with Brittany is like, it's so sick. Like I was talking with someone about it where like with Cold God, I'm just trying to capture like that 2014 energy, like when I got into all of this stuff, like truly got into it and like made it my everything.
Sure.
And like I'm having a lot of like full circle moments with that, and so like playing with Brittany is another one of those things.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Great band.
Pity Sex is fantastic.
Very good. That bass tone.
Oh yeah. Oh, everything,
yeah,
man. And that's like shout out to Will Yip too.
Oh yeah, dude. Incredible man.
And then opening the show is none other than Vatican Voss. That's Max. He is Ian Shelton's younger brother. But when Max got out of prison and moved to LA, like I had met him with Ian. We were all walking in, my girl and them too, we were all walking into like the Vane show, and I met him for the first time, and he was wearing like Yeezy Gap, and I was like, this kid's cool. And then I'd like just followed him on Instagram and like just got kind of like more familiar with him, seeing him out at like different military gun shows. And then I found out that Ian had told me that his brother was a rapper. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And a year or two had like gone on, and Max had posted in his Instagram story, he was like, yo, who's trying to put Vatican Voss on? Like, who's gonna book the first Vatican Voss show? And I was like, yeah, I'll do it.
Nice.
Because it just like reminded me of like when like Cold God had first started.
Sure.
Like our first show, I was like asking every venue and like doing the same thing that like Max was doing, being like, yo, like someone put us on, who's booking a show, like who wants Cold God?
Yeah. And
I'm sure like people were probably reaching out to him quicker than us, but I had just seen that, and I was like, yo, like I gotta snatch him up for a show for sure. And yeah, so I'm really stoked to have Max on the show.
That's really awesome to hear. I love whenever people I think it's making a bit of a resurgence again. It briefly happened, back in the 2000 scenes too. It's like these shows with variety. I
Yeah,
love whenever you might have like a rap or R&B artist on with a shoegaze artist in this example for the sake of this one. But I've those mixed bill shows to me are always the most attractive because that's how you pick up new fans. I feel like,
yeah,
the word of mouth, like. Somebody might be going there for the rap experience, if you will, but maybe they never gave shoegaze a chance, and then you guys might be the linchpin and you could, you can turn that scenario in the other direction as well. Maybe obviously there's going to be a lot of people out there to see you guys for your album release show,
hmm
and maybe they're not familiar with these other artists or things that they've been involved with in the past or who they're the brother of. So that's going to lead to an all new discovery for them too, and it's going to be really exciting whenever they stumble upon these things. So I love hearing how the show's crafted.
yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah, it was good. I think when we had a rapper on our first show too, I would love to play with more rappers. But
That's
shout out
awesome.
to Joshua Bloom. But yeah, just keeping like that theme all the way through.
Hell yeah, absolutely. Well, I think you guys are a band that's leveling up with everything that you guys are doing on the production piece with the albums and the concepts and just dialing it in and fine tuning now. You guys, we've kind of talked about kind of the highlights of the band already having that vision aspect nailed down, and you guys are already thinking in the right way, like what can we do to set ourselves apart from everybody else. I think you guys are definitely in that stratosphere sound wise, sound palette wise, bands like a Nothing or a Whirr. So if you're into like that mid 2010s shoegaze pop off, these guys, Cold God, are definitely for you. And,
Yeah, yeah.
that being said, I know you've been so generous with your time, and I want to get to kind of some of the more personal interest type questions so people get to know
Yeah,
you a little
let's
bit
get
better,
it.
Matt. So I wanted to ask you, this one, I'm interested to hear what you're going to say based on what we just discussed, and that is, if you're going to have a dream bill for Cold God to play on, so let's say there's 5 total bands, Cold God being one of them,
Ooh,
what are the
okay.
4 other bands that you would book if money was no object and all of them would say yes regardless?
Sick. Okay, so then here's how I would build the show. It's tough, but I think I can make it work. So, okay, so 100% Snow Allegra as the headliner, Cold God as direct support, and then you need like, damn, this is actually kind of hard now that I think about it. Oh, dude, I was scrolling through, like going in alphabetical. I don't know if you like that band Agriculture.
Oh, I
They
love
wouldn't
them.
really fit on the show, but
Hey, man,
Agriculture would be
you're
like,
talking my language. I'm all
yeah,
about it.
dude, I
All about it.
fucking love
That album
them.
last year is incredible.
It's
The EP
insane.
is good this year too, but
Yeah, that
it's like one of
album
those
is to
things.
go
It's
down.
like I need more. I must have more.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so that I would do Snow, Us, Choir Boy,
Oh hell yes, yes.
uh,
Label mates of yours.
Label Mates, yeah. And then I'd try to get Death of Lovers out of retirement.
Okay.
Um, and then I feel like we got. Oh, and then I would do actually like maybe one of my favorite records right now. How do you say her name? Christabel. Uh, Christabel and David Lynch just put out this record called Cellophane Memories,
Ooh,
but I really like that. So, all right, so the show would start there go Death of Lovers, Choir Boy, Christabel, Us, and Snow Allegra.
I love it. I
I
love the
think that would
variety,
be a really good show. I would pay $50 for that.
dude. That sounds fun. That sounds real fun. I kind of touched on this maybe earlier, so hopefully I didn't give it away too early. But what would you consider as like the greatest gift that you've ever received in your life?
I mean, it has to be. I mean, shout out to my girlfriend, but she's the best gift giver of all time.
There you go.
Everything I've ever gotten from her has been like so like heartfelt or like something so important to me. But I would definitely say the Pink Jazz Master, because I think without that, I don't think we're here today.
Sure.
And so I think that's like, and that's not to dismiss anything else. She's gotten me some really good stuff.
Sure.
But I think that Pink Jazz Master and that's like the thing I've wanted for like as a kid. I mean, if you call it 18-year-old being a
Sure.
kid, but
Sure.
like I wanted that shit for so long.
Yeah, no, it's kind of like the holy grail type thing. And, whenever somebody cares about you enough to know how important it is to you, number one. And then secondly, to know the inspiration the track that this set you on, the wind that it put into your sails to create this wonderful, wonderful music that you have. I would consider that pretty important as well.
Yeah, it's super important. Super. And also one time, so speaking of David Lynch, I'm a big Twin Peaks fan.
Hell
And
yeah.
one time for my birthday, we went to the Madonna Inn, and it just so happened to be like the right amount of cloudy and like
Oh,
overcast
love it.
and it made the Madonna Inn look like the Great Northern. And then we had like ate at the restaurant inside the Madonna Inn, and our waitress who helped us was like a character out of Twin Peaks.
Nice.
So we got to live Twin Peaks for a couple hours, which
That's fantastic.
was very, very fun.
Yeah, I'm a huge David Lynch fan as well. What an incredible man. Love him to death.
Yeah. I miss when, I don't know if you ever watched his YouTube, but he would
Yeah.
do like the numbers of the day.
Yeah, the
and
weather report.
reports. Oh,
Yeah.
I miss those, man.
I was literally just having a conversation about that the other day because I guess he just made an announcement that he's not doing any more in-person directing, which broke my heart to hear. But
Yeah,
dude's
I
like
know.
pushing 80, I think.
Yeah,
So
and he
it's
smoked
understandable.
probably a pack a day.
Oh, easily. Yeah, I got love for everything David Lynch does. The breath that he takes, I got love for it.
Yeah, hell yeah. I
Yeah.
agree.
Can't do no wrong, in my opinion. I'm kind of curious to hear, is there any hobbies or interests that you have outside of music? What are some things that you find yourself spending time in, or there's certain things you collect, or?
I mean, I really like shoes. I like
Okay.
clothes. So I'm like real hip on like when Paris Fashion Week happens. I don't watch all the runways, but I do like just looking at, because like with like Paris Fashion Week, they're like basically the way that I see it is like they're predicting the future and trends, like Louis Vuitton
Sure.
and Balenciaga and Celine. These are these people who are supposed to be like setting the standard for dressing, and so it's kind of interesting to see what they think, because certain runways are like a year and a half out of like when they're supposed to come out, and so you're seeing like a trench coat, and you're like, oh, like all right, that's what trenches are gonna look like that's what everyone's gonna like, because everyone like the like level of fashion below the big houses is just trying to do what they do, like, or not even like the level below the big houses, but like Zara.
Sure.
Like Zara is gonna take what the big fashion, like take the pieces from the big
Right.
fashion houses and then redo them and sell them for like a lot cheaper, right?
Sure.
And so it's kind of cool to see like what Pharrell or Denma
Right.
think is gonna be like what's coming up in fashion. So I really like that. I'm a big New Balance guy. I
Yeah.
wish I could collect them, but I don't get paid enough money
I hear that.
to buy shoes all the time. But
Yeah.
especially once I got Teddy Saint to do like all the made in USA stuff, like
Mhm.
all the like New Balance 990s are insane. Like they like the best. Talk about a brand like capitalizing on them, like sort of catching this resurgence. Like no one's done it like New Balance.
Yeah. I'm a big New Balance fan as well.
And that's-
What's heavy in the rotation right now for you? What are you listening to a lot?
Yeah, Beach House never leaves the rotation, that's for sure. But this Christabel record I think is really, really good.
I've heard good things about Christabel. I've never checked them out, so I'll have to
It's cool.
give it a
It's
spin.
just like ambient music for the most part,
Yeah.
with a bunch of like vocal tracks layered on top of each other.
Yeah.
And she's a fantastic singer, and so it all just sounds super pretty. Brat, this is a Brat Summer, Cold God Brat Summer is what's going on.
I just talked to Stan Still, and they're on DAIS Records, melodic hardcore band out of the
yeah,
Long
yeah.
Island area. And they were really singing the praises of the new Charlie XAX album as well, Brett. And we had just, like our podcast network, I actually turned the guys onto it. And we had literally just finished listening to it the prior week. So it's been kind of like Brat consistently for the last 3 weeks for everybody.
Dude, it's so fucking good. Like, it's been so long since, like, I think everyone has been unified on an album like this.
Definitely.
And I love being able to be a part of it. Like, Brat is such a fucking cool record.
I agree.
On top of everybody being like loving something universally, the Dive record
Sure.
was really good. At first, I wasn't the craziest about it, but when we were on tour, my girlfriend had texted me and she said, I have something to tell you. And I'm like, what? She said, that Dive album is really good. And
it is.
So I listened to it again all the way through, just like looking out the window in like Washington. And then before I did this listen, the Dive has like their own podcast where they sort of like, they've really gone into the nitty gritty of Frog and Boiling Water.
Yeah.
And so like hearing them talk about the record in like such great detail, on top of my girlfriend saying that it's fantastic, and we saw them too. I forget. I wish I could remember the kid's name, but if he listens, thank you. There's a kid who gave me his tickets to that show for free.
Nice.
And so we both got to go see Dive play on this last tour.
Nice.
And as a band, like as a live band, it sounded like really, really good. And that like that song, like Before You Were Born, which is on the album before, Deceiver.
Yeah.
Like that's maybe like that's entering into my favorite songs ever, because I just listen to it
really good.
nonstop.
Yeah.
But yes, Dive. The more I listen, and I think it'll just continue for the rest of forever. The more I listen to Frog in Boiling Water, I'm just gonna like it more and more every time.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those cohesive albums we talked about. Kind of the narrative of the track listing. You know, it definitely dials into that concept of you know, album writing and stuff, and it's just really incredible. I liked the singles coming out as they were coming out. One funny thing was the music video, like the fake SNL thing that they did with Fred Durst.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, I could almost kind of see you guys doing something like that, and like kind of the aesthetic that they had with that video and stuff. I mean, I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that album's good. The SoulNet video is really good too, with like them like AI in themselves. Like they do that right amount of like tongue in cheekness, but still keeping it like artistic, which I think is like something that I'm trying to capture now. Is like, all right, how do we make like irony like a part of what we're doing? And I think Dive does it so well with everything. Like even at their live set, they had like videos in between that were like these fake ads for like SoulNet or like for their merch. Because like obviously, like how many times have you heard we got merch in the back? Like no shit, we all got merch in the back. But the way that they did theirs was like, so it was like that is the other element. Because you know, you're either, you know, it's either you say it or you don't say it. But Dive figured out the other thing.
Right. Absolutely.
And that was really cool. But yeah, I would say Brat, Christabel, Dive album, and then I've been listening to our record a lot too.
Yeah, sure.
I think we're trying to play all the songs for the record release show, so just like going back and like trying to like remember like what we did. Not that I forgot, but more like, you know, like really intently listen to it and go like, okay, that part is supposed to sound like this.
I don't know if you get like this. This is one thing that kind of plagued me in the past as a songwriter. But do you look back on stuff that you like printed, that you recorded, and think, man, I could have done this differently here or there, or wish you had done something maybe differently in certain parts?
I go back and definitely think I could do things different, but I don't wish I could have, only because like, you know, that was like a snapshot. Like that was the decision that we made like in the moment, you know.
Picture in time.
And like at that time, that was the right decision. And of course, like as tastes change, as I get older and like learn more about music, like of course, like even like that first record, I kind of like forget about it because, you know, there's like, I mean, that is something that I like, everything is like, oh, I could have done that. Oh, I could have done that. But again, like that was like that snapshot in time. Like it sounds like that was an album I made with Henry Stair from Slow Pulp during COVID, and like before he even had a studio, like we were recording it in Slow Pulp's practice space, and we could only really record from 8 to 12 because at 12 there was a guy who had the unit below them who would practice drums to a metronome loud as hell, and that would happen. We couldn't record anymore. And so, you know, we had all the decisions that were made from creative pursuits, or, you know, that's what was going on at the time. So like, yeah, of course. And then that'll happen a couple years from now, even with Drown. But all those things that maybe if I could wish I did do them differently, I just do them on the next record.
Are you guys a band that allows yourselves kind of like the creative freedom when you play live to maybe spice things up a little bit differently, add a new wrinkle to the game? Or are you guys pretty set on, you know, playing out the same way it's recorded?
Oh no, we do different stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, like the way that we play like that song "You Should Be Fine" is like different. It's different live than it is on record. Or like with Gin, you know, that song's like 6 minutes, but we could make it 7. We could make it 4. We could probably do 10 minutes. One day we'll do 10 minutes. We haven't done it yet, but like because it just has that long jam part at the end. And sometimes, you know, like I'll switch up the words. That part gets heard a little less because of like just how loud all the guitars are. But
Sure.
yeah, we leave ourselves a lot of wiggle room, and especially like with Cam, like if he's feeling like a different drum fill in the moment, then he's gonna do a different drum fill, because like, you know, again, you just listen to more music and you're like, oh, like of course if I had heard this song
Sure.
while I was recording the record, I would have done like a fill similar to this. We
Cool.
we change it up. We try to make everything a different experience.
Very cool. Well, I love to hear it. And man, Matt, it was awesome getting to know you, hearing about
Hey,
all the
yeah,
stuff in
thanks
the
for having
past,
me.
your background, the connections that you guys got. You know, it's a small world sometimes whenever you get to talking to people and you realize how closely knit some of these worlds and some of these bands that you're a fan of and fandom is. And it's really cool to hear how you're just kind of breeding inclusivity, not only from, you know, maybe a racial perspective, but even just musical perspective as well. You know, bringing folks in that aren't necessarily shoegaze bands on your shows. I mean, I'm just loving everything that I'm hearing. Big fan of what you guys are doing, and I think everybody else will be too. So can't encourage folks enough to check you guys out.
Thank you, man. You're too kind. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. So where is the place that people should stay tuned to you guys if they want to know what's going on down to the last minute? Where are you guys most active at on social media?
You want to go to at CLDGWD at Instagram. That's Cold God with no vowels. I'm pretty much on Instagram all day. So I always be posting. I always be scrolling.
Awesome.
That's where everything's at. We have Twitter under the same handle. I like go back and forth on like, I think I'm gonna delete it because that place is like a hellscape in comparison to what it used to be.
Yeah.
Or you could go to coldgod.com. There's not much going on there, but you know, it fits the vibe.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited to see how this whole entire new album rolls out. I know I'm going to be dedicating some time as soon as I get that vinyl in my hands to sit down, maybe have a little smoke and get in the feels and sit in front of some speakers and play this thing through, probably run it back a few times. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. I can't wait for you to hear it.
Hey there, this is Barrett from the ATI Podcast here to talk about what we have going on the ATI Podcast Network. First, we'll start with Waxing On with R and J. The format of Waxing On with R and J is audible selections made exclusively by our hosts and brothers, Ridge Jackson and Jake Jackson. Waxing On with R and J is sure to tickle your inner eardrums with some of the most vile tones you've ever encountered, and conversely, ear candy with pop melodies, focusing on spotlighting underground and rising artists. Waxing On with R&J is another outlet of the ATI podcast community to bring awareness to many musicians' craft. Also found on the ATI Podcast Network, Nod Narb's Closet, hosted by Brandon Stewart of Edos Inn. Nod Narb's Closet is a wing of the ATI podcast programming that delves into the world of roleplay games, miniature painting, diorama making, occasional pro wrestling match watch-alongs, providing commentary with a dash of jocularity and satire, and much, much more. Of course, leading the pack is the ATI Podcast. On the ATI Podcast, we episodically invite guests onto our show to spotlight their talents, whether that's musicians, filmmakers, artists, actors, businesses, even athletes. Nothing is off the table. The focus of the ATI Podcast and its collective creative arms, whether that's Waxing On with R and J or Nod Narb's Closet, is to bring awareness and focus to people's talents. Be sure to follow us across all traditional podcasting platforms, and for the full experience, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search the ATI Podcast. Stay safe out there.